Okay, so I recently across these guys at the behavioral panel, and so far, man, I like their analysis, the way that they do it and set it up. Not that I necessarily agree with everything, but I just kind of like the input and the ideas that they give. So these are varying kind of body language um, uh, uh, views on Patsy, Burke, and John. So I think there's about six of them. So let's go.
There's a flash in her pupils in this, like you don't get the opportunity to see very
The
often.
Colorado Bureau of Investigation took your handwriting samples to the Secret Service. Do you know the results of that test?
Her pupils go to pinpoint and then back out a little.
We had experts do the same kind of testing, and it's my understanding that the people that we use trained the people from the CBI.
If she really believes that whatever she has, her expert's better than your expert, is what she just said. My expert taught your expert. So there, I'll see your expert and raise you another. If she really believed that and didn't know about the Secret Service doing it, she probably would quickly go, uh-oh, there's a piece of data I didn't expect. And the squint is data intake, and whether you call it fake concern or concern, she's doing data intake. So those are really big things for me. It makes me want to talk to her more about the handwriting.
And what I think about that when she squinted, personally, what I think about that is there almost seemed to be like a little bit of an attitude behind it, right? When you look at the squint, there's almost like a little, because she's kind of shaking. If you watch interviews with Patsy, you notice that Patsy does this quite a lot. She's shaking her head and she's kind of going along with what you're saying. And then you say something and she's like, and then she just kind of keeps talking. Um, I'm not necessarily, for me, I wouldn't say that this really indicates anything other than I do like the fact that he pointed out the squinted pupils, but this doesn't. It just makes you want to talk to her more. It doesn't stand out as anything just very significant one way or the other than I'm just waiting for you to get to your point. We're talking, and I think I know where you're going, but at the last minute, I want to hone in and try to see what your point is just to make sure I understand you and I get you. So then from there, I can make sure of what I'm going to say. So that was interesting. So here's the next one.
One key part here that I thought was interesting.
Put pride and prejudice aside. Work to find the killer of this child.
Are you calling JonBenet this child instead of using her name or something more personal feels a little off, especially in such an emotional situation. Let's talk about a few reasons why this might happen. Number one is emotional distance. Patsy might have been unconsciously trying to put some space between herself and the reality of what happened. It's easier to use less personal language. The second reason is trying to sound formal. She might have been trying to choose her words carefully to come across as certain way. And I think maybe it's an appeal to the public or to make her plea sound more objective. If it is a possible red flag, it's not proof of anything. Studies show that when people avoid personal terms in situations like this, it can sometimes hint at internal conflict or deception, but it's not associated with the other signs. It's one small detail. So it's really not enough to draw any big conclusions on its own, but it does stand out.
And what's also interesting about this is that the more you watch interviews from Patsy and John, the more you notice that they do kind of slip in and out of the, that language, this child, that child. Um, and as I mentioned in one of my other analyses, is that when John talks about Burke, sometimes um, it's very distanced, in a way. Uh, he was a good kid. His employers like him. He buys used cars, great investments. So it's very much of a distance. And so we know why you would put a distance between, yourself and JonBenet as a parent. We know why you would do that because she's deceased and, you're kind of trying to disengage your brain from that because it's just very tough to accept that and receive that. But why you would seemingly disengage from Burke is interesting to me. I would think that all of the time that you had to bond with Burke, and kind of talking about another analysis, all the time that you had to bond with Burke, you would kind of bond with him and say, after, Patsy dies, this is all, and if you're John, this is all I have left. But if we go back here and we notice Patsy's head movements,
the killer of this
Are you
child.
calling JonBenet this child instead of using her name or something more personal? Feels a little
This, you know, she is really trying to drive a point home when she's doing this. And it's almost as if this is why you gotta this is why Linwood had to sit beside Patsy in the deposition. Because if you and this is why they called Patsy a bulldog. Because if you let her out the cage by herself, then Patsy's going now. John is all, John is, he's the John is the more what word John is the calmer one of the two. John is the more level-headed one of the two, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a time for being level-headed and saying, let's just calm down and think this through. But there's also a time to do what Patsy does, and that's just get after it. And that's all Patsy knows to do. And so when Patsy, latches on to something, she's going to shake her head and she's going to go after it. And when she believes something, now what I find interesting about this though,
Killer of this
Are you
child.
calling JonBenet this child instead of using her as interesting?
Put pride and prejudice aside. Work to find the killer of this child.
her voice is never, and her voice is never forceful. And I kind of have a problem with that because it's like I am expecting more force, and it's not even the depth or the it has nothing to do with, because some people have higher voices, higher pitched voice, and some people have deeper tones and stuff like that, and lower registers and stuff like that naturally. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the force of words used. It almost feels as if there's a drawback when she's saying put pride and prejudice aside, because she's violently shaking her head almost as if I have something to say. I'm sick and tired of the nonsense. Listen to me. Because she's talking to Detective Thomas. She's responding to Detective Thomas, and he's just written a book about them. I'm tired of this. You're not going to talk about me and my family anymore, is essentially what she wants to say. But I'm tired of this. Stop talking about me is what the head movement says. But what she's actually saying is a little bit softer. Put pride and prejudice aside. Like that's how it should be coming off. But she's like, put pride and prejudice. It's a little bit more of a softer tone, which makes me think that she's not convinced about what she's saying, and she's trying to see, and this is the problem, she's trying to see if you believe her. And again, going in front of the media and trying to convince people of, do you believe my position? And this was one of John Ramsey's problems with Detective Arndt, in that there was an instance in which I guess, Detective Arndt had said that, and I got to make sure I catch it, but I think there was an instance in which Detective Arndt, kind of called them out by saying that John was down there. He had brought up JonBenet, from the downstairs to the upstairs and later down. And I guess she said something to the effect of that, or somebody said he wasn't yet crying, but he kind of, put her down and just kind of, looked around a little bit to see if anybody was watching. And then that's when Patsy came over and just, did her thing and just wailing and boo-hooing and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. But this is what I'm saying. This consistent where people are tagging them and saying, you know what? I don't believe you. And so they have to act out more. So this is like, I have to get ready to play the part, to convince you. So that's interesting. Here's the next clip.
When he realizes this tough question is coming, his eyes immediately go back to that 7, 8 o'clock exit search to look towards the exit because he knows this question is going to come.
Let's clear this up once and for all.
And there's some severe discomfort shifting between his 5 and 7 o'clock positions and then back to Dr. Phil here. And his head shaking no and saying no don't occur simultaneously. 5 and 7 o'clock positions, and then
So 5 o'clock was over here, and then down here, kind of the 7, and then back to Dr. Phil.
Back to Dr. Phil here, and his head shaking no and
7, kind of over there.
saying no don't occur simultaneously.
Did you, your sister JonBenet?
No.
So they're asynchronous, but that is only one or two indicators here of high stress. Remember, there's no body language for deception. There is no body language for deception.
This is the one thing that I just makes me uncomfortable about this, you know, everything that he mentioned.
For Phil here,
But, the not shaking the head and the eye movement simultaneously, absolutely. Those are great points.
and his head shaking no and saying no don't occur simultaneously.
Did you, your sister, JonBenet?
No.
That little boom, boom with his eyes when it went right here, I'm looking out of the corner of my eye and then I look down. That indicates to me that, again, you're shifting into an exact memory. You're unlocking an exact memory. You're telling me no, but as you're telling me no, you're like, no, I didn't. And you're looking over and you're locking into a memory, just a flash of something that brings whatever it is back. That's what that might suggest to me. I'm gonna play it again.
No.
That trail off, that just makes me so
Mr.
uncomfortable.
JonBenet?
No.
Like his eyes go like that.
So,
and then he looks back up because it's like, hey, by the way, my eyes are up here. You're supposed to be maintaining eye contact with me. And this is my problem. You can be who you want to be. And I think, as some people say that, Burke is going to do this because he's on he's on the spectrum and all such as that. I don't have any verifiable evidence for that. Some of you guys are mental health professionals to that degree, or medical professionals to that degree, and psychiatrists and stuff like that, and you can give these psychiatric evaluations and all such as that. I'll leave that up to you. I'm not a psychiatrist or or a medical professional like that, so I'm not going to diagnose what Burke is or isn't. So I'll leave that to you. But whether he is or isn't on the spectrum, what it appears to me is that whatever he is very high functioning. If he is on the spectrum, he is very high functioning at it. And there, I will allow for some discomfort because
JonBenet?
No.
if he's on the spectrum, I will allow for some discomfort and give him some leeway for some of this stuff. But this looking down when you talk, he's done that since he was a child. In some of the biggest moments, some of the most critical moments in speaking with child psychologists and police and stuff like that in the interviews, kind of looking down and kind of kicking his legs and playing with a toy or something like that, looking down as people are talking to him, but then popping up to give something important. One of the things I still remember about Burke in one of those interviews is that he was looking down or he was doing something else. He was kind of flipping around and moving around in the chair while he was talking to the police and stuff like that. And he was this, that, and the third, and the guy was trying to ask him questions. And he was doing all this and that and not really paying attention. But as soon, and he was kind of back here. But as soon as the guy asked him something that seemed to be jarring or alarming to him, that was very important, he kind of looked up and stared right at the guy. And it's just like, I know you have the ability to look somebody dead in the eye, but for some strange and odd reason, you won't do it consistently. And that's followed through here. So I'm going to play the next clip.
Something I found interesting in this is he's got his hands together. He's got them clasped together there between his legs, and his sweater's pulled down to cover his wrists. So it may be that he's cold. It may be that he feels unsafe. It may be where he's just over everything so far and just trying to get as hard as he can to get comfortable, because these things take a long time when you're talking about those things, especially in a TV interview. And going back to his one-word answers.
Did you do anything to harm your sister, JonBenet?
No.
Did you?
And it's like, why is he answering that no as if he's on like, let's make a deal? You know what I mean? Or who wants to be a millionaire? is he sounds like he's on some sort of game show.
JonBenet.
No.
And he is sitting with his I note the sleeves down. I didn't note that before. That was a good catch. But his posture almost seems like he's pushing back into the seat. You know what I mean? Like that's what it's just like he's driving back into the seat, almost trying to get away from something.
Did you
And he's sitting
murder your
perfectly still.
Did you
No.
did you
And that was so mechanical.
murder your sister, JonBenet?
No.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think he's on the autism spectrum. You ask him a yes or no question, they'll give you a yes or no answer. And that's what you're supposed to give those anyway. But that's what he does. You give him a question like that, and that's what it is. And I think Dr. Phil knew that. And I think that's why he lobbed that at him like that. Sort of prepped him for it, and the kid saw it coming, worked his way up to it. And that's fine when they do that. But he hates that question. That's another reason that he gets quiet as well.
Murder your sister, JonBenet?
No.
I'm going to go ahead and say
Do anything to harm your sister, JonBenet?
No.
Did you
No.
did you JonBenet?
No.
The pitch is messing with me. No. It's not no or no. No, but it's not an emphatic no, or it's not in fact no. That's what I would expect. It's not an emphatic no, I didn't. As he's pushing back, driving back into this seat, it's almost as if he said it. The pitch indicates that he said it, moving away from what was being asked. Did you do anything to harm? No. Because it's like, think about if you're in conversation and somebody says, say somebody told you go pick up some dry cleaning early on that day, and you forgot. And so when they ask you, hey, did you get my dry cleaning? And you're like, no, and you're just like, I'm trying to see just how bad this is going to be. Because I got to say no, but how bad is this going to be? Where are we going to go from here? I'm not necessarily sure we're going to go from here. And you're here with Dr. Phil. You trust him. So you shouldn't be answering upward like that. There shouldn't be a rising pitch. I think I would prefer something more like no. Because that's what John does sometimes when you ask him. He's like, no, absolutely not. And not everybody has the answer the same way. But that's what I kind of would prefer. No. Something more confident. No. Lean into it. No. Did you harm your sister? No. Did you do this? Absolutely not. Did you just? No, that is not true. That's baseless. It never happened. Tabloid said this. And, that's why I'm winning in court. Something like that. But it's always as if Burke is on his heels with every single question, and he hasn't done an interview, seems like, since he was a child.
Did you murder your sister?
up to it. And that's fine when they do that. But
Okay, I'll play the next one.
He's being put in a bit of a corner.
Did you do anything to harm your sister, JonBenet?
But still, it's a relatively strong denial.
No.
But when you put it against the denial of,
Did you murder your sister, JonBenet?
No.
we then get alongside that the full shake of the head that goes alongside that. So I think what we're seeing there is the competition. You can't really answer the first question in any truthful way, I believe. The second one is way more forceful. I think what people worry about is the look that we get afterwards. It is a look for approval from status, not a look from, are you buying my story on both counts? That glance for approval at the end is going to easily look like something devious. I do not believe it's devious.
I disagree. That's where I disagree. I do believe
question in any truthful way, I believe. The second one is way more forceful. I think what people
neither one of those questions were answered with any force. Neither one.
Worry about is the look that we get afterwards. It is a look for approval from status, not a look from, are you buying my story?
Well, it's both. You essentially said the same thing, because if we're talking about status in the context of this is a somebody of maybe somebody of means. You have Dr. Phil. This is Dr. Phil here. That is kind of saying the same thing as, is Dr. Phil the, head honcho, the guru, the TV psychologist buying my story? So I would put those sentences together as the same thing. Are you buying my story? I think he's trying to separate it, but it's like, no, he's trying to get approval from the head guy of whether or not the head guy is buying his story. Why would I say that? Because it's consistent. John and Patsy do it. They all do it. Because I think there's it behaviorally, there seems to be some level of guilt there. No matter what it's associated with, there seems to be some level of guilt there, some level of shame there. Even if it's, how did we all let this happen? Even if it's, I wish I would have been a better mom or dad or brother to my sister. Even if it's any of those things, there is some sort of drawback in a lot of their answers that doesn't give you the full force in any question. And like we just said with Patsy, the shaking of the head, and I'm really going in, but I'm really not, though.
On both counts. That glance for approval at the end is going to easily look like something devious. I do not believe it's devious. It comes from a place of wanting to get it right, who's on the brink of, they've got nothing more to give. Devious. I do not believe it's devious. Look like some approval at the end is going to easily look like something devious. I do not believe it's devious. It comes from a place of wanting to get it, easily look like something devious.
Has nothing to do with being devious to me. Has everything to do with reconnecting.
Look like something
with a core memory. Because what are you looking at? What are you looking to right there? And that's why I say that. And here's the last clip.
We always say you should hear an emphatic no when a person is denying something. He does an emphatic no.
Did you murder your daughter?
No. When he's asked if Patsy did it, he does.
You see that? Boom. No.
An emphatic no.
Did Patsy?
No. And then when he's asked if
no.
Burke did, he says no, and he trails off and starts to say something.
Did Burke?
No, that's no. And she steps on him.
Why should we believe you?
And we don't know what he would have said. Whatever that was, I would have gone back and cleaned that up and said, what exactly were you talking about right here? Just give him a chance to talk. It's natural for a person to step over that and let the person go, especially when it's a situation where you're talking about their closest loved ones. I hear emphatic with some qualifiers. I wish we could have heard what the qualifiers were.
Right. And that's what I was kind of saying in my analysis when I was talking about Ashley on the Crime Junkie podcast. That's what I was talking about. She stepped over some questions and no, let him answer. Let him answer. Do not save him. I know that you want to save him because he is your guest and he has done you a solid by coming here. You want to get John Ramsey on this thing. Thank you so much, John, for coming. But I'm going to put this out to 500,000 people. I think the stream had 438K views. So I want to put this out to people, but it's just like, Don't save him. Let him talk. And I love this analysis from this gentleman because it does highlight the fact that emphatic. And this is what I was talking about. So when we go back to what Burke was doing, and Burke is not emphatically, boom, no. What do you know? What I'm telling you no, but no. You know something I don't? You see what I'm saying? Like,
No. And she steps on him.
Why should we believe you?
And then when he's asked if Burke did, he says no. And he
and I, because I think she was in the Netflix documentary, so I don't think that she's against him. She's actually on his team. She actually believes the intruder theory with him, so I don't think she's stepping over him to, you know, uh, 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 uh to try to sort of degrade him in any way or say like you're not coming across right. Why should we believe you? She's just saying that to kind of help him have an opportunity to prove himself.
trails off and starts to say something.
Did Burke?
No, that's saying something. He does an emphatic no.
Did you murder your daughter?
No. When he's asked if Patsy,
And that's like, that is the real one. That's what I've been looking for. When we go back to some of the interviews with Patsy, and she's like, you know, the fact that you would even ask me that is just so unbelievable. I want to hear that, Patsy. I want to hear this.
he did it. He does an emphatic no.
Did Patsy?
No. And then when he's asked,
She didn't get to finish before he was like, no. Stop asking me dumb questions. No. But then he gets here.
if Burke did, he says no, and he trails off and starts to say something.
Did Burke?
No, that's no. And she steps.
No, that's no. That's what? Here we go again with you, John. You're trying to answer questions that we didn't ask. You're ready to go on the attack for something.
No. And she steps on him.
Why should?
No, that's no. And she.
The growl at the end. No, that's because there was a little bit of a and sort of like an exhale at the end of that. No. As if I'm about to explain myself, and I'm about to really go in as in, why do y'all keep asking me that? Almost like it's a pain point that you continue to ask me that. Pain point because of what? I don't know. But no. Why did you almost lose your cool on that? You're amongst friends. Why'd you almost lose your cool on that, is what I might say.
Did Burke?
No, that's no.
But it's not as strong as he's pointing out. It's no, that's no. Are you about to say something that's going to get you in trouble? Are you about to say something that's too much? What? So I found that very interesting.
And she steps on him.
Why should we believe you?
And we don't know what he would have said.
So yeah, man, those are, they have an actual full video analysis. Think here. They have the full video analysis. Body language experts weigh in on JonBenet Ramsey. And again, this is the behavioral panel. I might watch the full thing, man. It's actually pretty good from just the clips I saw here. But yeah, man, let me know what you think in the comments. Disagree, agree, whatever, what have you. Like, share, subscribe. As always, thanks for your support. And until the next video, take it easy.